Welcome to the Self-Care for the Creative podcast, the podcast for artists and songwriters and music creators who want sustainable success, not burnout disguised as hustle. I'm your host, Stefani Fryzel. I'm an author, an artist, a songwriter, and a creative coach, and I'm the founder of Stefani Fryzel Coaching. We help artists and songwriters build sustainable careers in music and give them the opportunity to get in the room with hit songwriters and uplevel their craft. In this season, you will hear from hit songwriters on how they protect their creative energy, their mental health, behind the scenes on the music industry lessons that you won't find on Instagram, strategies for navigating rejection, burnout, overwhelm, conversations about money, mindset, boundaries, success, failures, and finding longevity in the industry. This podcast is for creatives who are serious about their craft as a songwriter and an artist, committed to growth, and are ready to stop sacrificing their well-being in the process. If you want to write better songs, build a stronger career, and still feel grounded, inspired, and motivated, this podcast is for you. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to season 3 of the Self-Care for the Creative podcast. I'm your host, Steph Fryzel, and today is the very first day of the Fire Horse year. I am recording this on February 17th, 2026. By the time this comes out, it'll be a couple months down the road, but today feels like a fantastic time to kick off this season of the podcast. So today, I'm going to be sharing just a few of my top tools and strategies for managing burnout as a creative. Now, I am the founder of Stefani Fryzel Coaching. We help artists and songwriters build sustainable careers in music without all the burnout. One of the things that we do is we just create amazing rooms. We're known for creating unique spaces, unique opportunities for growth. And we help songwriters get in the room with hit songwriters and expand their craft and expand their ability, build their communities, all of the things. Now, that all sounds amazing, but we all know that we all, from time to time, experience burnout. And so what does that look like? What can we do? What are some tools, some strategies in order to even recognize what burnout is? How do we combat it? And what can we, start to do and have pull out from our toolbox in order to really care for ourselves during a time where we're not feeling so motivated, we're not feeling so 100% all the time, or we're, dealing with a little bit of depression or anxiety or whatever it is. How do we use the tools that we have at hand to properly manage burnout? Now, there's a really specific reason why I want to share this topic in general. I personally have experienced burnout in so many different ways and forms. And most notably, I just want to share what my year last year looked like. And I think I literally discovered a new level of low in terms of burnout because I had so many different things at play. So just to give you a very clear picture, I became a mom last year, January 1st. I gave birth to my son. That's how I kicked off 2025. Wild, wild, wild. What a journey. And that's something I'm going to talk about this season as well. Now that I'm a mom, I really want to talk about motherhood this season. I'm going to bring some other guests on that to talk about motherhood and what that journey looks like. I am so full of so many things to say about this experience and just what life looks like to me now. And the reason why I want to bring in this topic of motherhood is because it had forced me to completely reevaluate everything in my life. So for those moms out there who've given birth to a human and have had time and freedom and their bodies change and, loss of identity and all the things and, hormones shifting and all the things on top of having to learn how to care for a tiny human, it truly is like the hardest thing I've ever had to experience and gone through. And I'm still very new here. Like my son is 13 months as I'm recording this. He's beautiful and lovely and so much fun and a handful. But last year was not just a huge transition for my life as a creative, but as a woman, as a mom, as a creative entrepreneur. I really opened up this whole new portal of my life. And that also meant losing a lot of things, which is it was so painful in so many ways. And I still feel like I'm processing a lot of the stuff that I've gone through as of last year. And so how this pertains to burnout is on top of becoming a mom last year. Those of you that went to the Hitmakers Songwriting Retreat last year, it's our 3-day immersive retreat where songwriters get to come and write with hit songwriters. And we cover personal coaching, we cover personal development, we bring in people from, experts from the business, and we've really put in a lot of time and care into curating a beautiful experience for a songwriter. And that event took a lot of planning and a lot of hard work. And to do all of that on top of having just become a mom, it really, really tested me in ways that I was not expecting. And, before becoming a mom, there was a certain level of operating, oh, this is how I operate. Whether it's I go to the gym 5 days a week or whatever it is, or I work for 8 hours a day, all of that completely changes when you have a tiny human. All of a sudden you don't have the time, you're fighting for what you remember, right? You're fighting for what life used to be prior to this. And so the structure of my days were completely different. And what happened to me was I kept going at a pace that I remembered prior to my life. I wasn't aware that I actually wasn't making space for motherhood, right? Obviously I had I had to care for my baby and make sure he was alive and changing his diapers and all the things. It takes up a certain amount of time and space no matter what. And that's what it is. And then whatever time you have left over is the time that you put towards your job. So a lot of my year last year looked like mom and then work, mom and then work. And that was it. That was the dimensions of my life. And so I had a great year. It was a beautiful year. We sold out the retreat. It was a great year for our business. And, we made an amazing experience for our clients. And, people they can't wait to come back this year. And all of that is amazing and beautiful. However, I really hit a new level of burnout after that retreat that I had no clue was coming for me. No clue. And I was running the whole year, breastfeeding my baby, planning all the things, and then, delivered on the event, spoke for 3 days straight, and then, took care of our amazing care of our clients. And then the holidays hit, and then all of a sudden I felt the pain of the stuff that I wasn't making time for. I wasn't making time for, actually eating properly, and again, that's a whole other ball game when you are postpartum. Nutrition is so important. And it was a struggle to get to the basics. I talk about this in my book a lot of the time, the basics of sleep, hydration, movement, and, the things that you're putting into your body, getting your basics together is truly everything. And not being able to hit those basics on a regular basis was just the reality of what my world was like last year as a new mom. It's super tough, right? Barely getting to those basics. I was lucky if I was had a good, a couple days in a row of okay, I slept today, So the purpose of this episode is to just validate that burnout can happen at any point, regardless of whether or not you're a mom and, whatever your circumstance is. Every season of life is completely different. And just like your self-care, it requires different things at different times. So I just wanted to share a personal story about where I was at last year and how it actually forced me to not only reevaluate where my life is now, but what does self-care look like to me now? as a mother, as an entrepreneur, as a person, as a creative person who, requires X, Y, and Z certain things, and that burnout looked really heavy at the end of the year. The last, it was the year of the snake. And man, the year of the snake was really snaking for me last year. I had to cut a lot of stuff out of my life, like a lot. Not just because I didn't have the space for it, but because I felt like it wasn't serving, right? It just wasn't serving. There were certain things that I wasn't interested in doing anymore. There was, certain habits, routines. I lost some relationships last year. It just, what's required to be a mom is truly all of you. Like time, energy, management is the name of the game. And I hit an all-time low of burnout last year, paying the price of not prioritizing those basics, not prioritizing time and space for myself, and not prioritizing really meaningful relationships, which this year is going to be a big change. I'm really excited about that because this year, what I realized is, okay, this is probably the second or third time now that this has happened to me, and I shared this in a keynote recently, was success is not success if it's built on a crappy foundation, right? If you don't have the foundation, your self-care foundation, whatever that looks like to you, whatever you're building on top of it is a house of cards, and it's just going to fall down, right? And so my last year, 2025, I didn't make space for what motherhood needed of me. And I didn't yet know what this new identity of myself was trying to become, and what do I need at this phase of my life. So just to validate, wherever you are in your life, these questions come up all the time, and it's making those habits to check in with yourself and really be honest about where you're at. Okay. So top 3 tips of burnout. I'm going to just share 3 of those. And I would say my number one thing that comes up is dropping down to the basics. I've said this before. This is one of my all-time favorite things. There's a framework for checking in with your basics: sleep, diet, hydration, nutrition. Okay. Those are the 4 basics. And the framework is super simple. It's monitor, measure, and map. So monitor, step 1, you monitor your basics for a week, see how you're doing. How are you sleeping? What are you eating? All the things. And then step 2, you're going to measure, give it a rating between, 0 to 10, 10 being good, 0 being not so good. Just give it a rating and just kind of check in and see where you're at. There's no shame here. There's no judging yourself over not, getting to the gym 6 days a week. It's just about creating that awareness and getting curious and having a self check-in and be like, cool, this is where I'm at. And here's my rating. And then step 3, which is going to be your map. You are going to write one thing, one action step that would take your rating up 1 number. So for example, if your physical fitness is at a 4 right now, what would make it a 5? Is it going for a walk in the morning? Is it going to yoga? Is it adding stretching to your routine? Whatever it is, this looks different to everybody. But what I really love about this framework is it's so simple, so basic. And we all know that the basics of your self-care really make up for a huge amount of how we think, how we feel, how we create. Okay. So take that framework for you. Take that with you as something in your toolbox to work with burnout. If you're feeling a little bit burnt out and you're like, what am I doing with life right now? Why do I feel so sluggish? Why do I feel so depressed? Whatever it is, do your check-in around the basics. Okay. So that's my number 1 tip is I always drop down to the basics. So that is my favorite tip, is always checking in with the basics, because there's always usually something that I'm like, oh, that part, I'm failing at that part. Yes, I do need more sleep, or I have not been drinking enough water. Speaking of water, I'm literally going to take a sip of my water right now. Now, for my second tip for burnout, I think I want to talk about designing your life. So for example, my burnout that I experienced last year, it was really like everything fell apart. and I had to redesign what I need for my life now. So sometimes I think life will just knock us down when it's like, hey, this really isn't working. The way that you're approaching this is not sustainable. You cannot continue on this way. Like, do not pass go. Just burn it to the ground, start over, and redesign what your life needs now. It's kind of like going back to the drawing board, right? So if you're in a season of burnout, clearly your body, your brain, your creative soul, creative spirit is telling you something. It is saying, hey, I just don't want to carry on in the way that we've been going. What can I change? What can I lose? What can be different? And the way that I like to start this redesign is to simply point out the things that are draining me and draw out the things that are nourishing me. So this is a tool I love. It's super simple and you can do it right now and put it in your toolbox. I like to just draw a line down a piece of paper, and on the left side, I just put draining me and list all the things that are currently draining you, that are not raising your frequency, that every time, you talk to that person, you get a weird vibe or it just drags you down, or, identify the things that are pulling you down, that feel like it's sucking the air out of the room, right? And on the right side, write down all the things that are super comforting, super nourishing, that light you up, that raise your frequency. It could be talking to a friend. It could be reading more. It could be whatever it is. I like to use this process. It takes 5 minutes just to simply notify yourself of like, okay, this is what's draining me. This is what's energizing me, and start to rebuild and redesign your life from there. And then my last and final tip for burnout is truly to seek help from a professional. If you need therapy, if you've never done therapy before, it would be a great place to start. Seek help in ways that feel comforting and nurturing to you. It could be talking to a friend. It could be talking to a family member. It could be speaking to a doctor about your experience. If you're having, depression or anxiety or any of those things or any of these, symptoms, my recommendation is to seek help from professionals. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of healing in community as well, and surrounding yourself with those like-minded creatives, like-minded individuals that are also experiencing things that you are experiencing. But professional help from a therapist can come in totally clutch and so key if you're experiencing a massive burnout, especially if you're going through a life transition, right? So as I mentioned before, last year was a massive life transition. And to be honest, I'm still going through it. I'm literally still going through it. I think I shed a lot of stuff last year and I feel a lot lighter in a lot of ways, but it did take me reaching to the bottom, like getting to the bottom to like look back and be like, wow, I just figured out what's not working in my life. And this is a topic for another episode, but I realized that my work ethic, I'm a Capricorn, by the way, Capricorn girly, where are my Capricorn girlies in the astral plane. And I realized that my trait of being a hardworking goat is I have a lot of masculine energy when it comes to my work ethic. I'm very much like, get shit done. Give me a list. I will crush it. I'm very vision focused. I love to brainstorm. I love playing around with ideas. I love being around people. I love being creative, all the things. And then when it comes to execution, I'm very like, I will, when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. No matter what, that's just what I do. I'm really strong at follow through and really strong at execution. And so, tackling to-do lists is like kind of just like my day to day. And so I have a lot of masculine energy. And I realized that motherhood was also kind of masculine. I mean, there's obviously like a nurturing side of it to take care of a baby, but there's a lot of masculine energy as well in terms of being like the protector of this tiny human, and like your nervous system can't relax a lot of the time because you're like, is my baby okay? Is my baby okay? And so I was constantly in my masculine. And that's when I realized, oh, no wonder I'm burning out. No wonder I'm burning out. There's like no space for the feminine flow, for the feminine, receptive mode. And I had to, I had an aha moment where I was just like, okay, clearly this is not sustainable. This is not the way that I want to build, my life, my future, my business, all the things, and something has to change. So I am living proof of this right now, and I will definitely keep you updated on all the findings of this journey. But I think the biggest finding with burnout in my experience with this life transition was that sometimes you just have to restructure, reassess, and rebuild something new. Burnout happens because something is not working anymore. The old thing that you were doing is not working anymore. And this looks different for everybody else, right? This looks different on each individual, so ask those questions. What's working for you now? What isn't working for you now? And take these tools with you, okay? The check-in on the self-care basics, to seek help from professionals, and to redesign and rebuild your life. There is always a new way of doing things. So take that process of looking at the things that are draining you versus nourishing you and uplifting your spirits and creating a higher frequency for you. So I am sending all the love your way. Know that you are not alone in experiencing a burnout or a massive life transition, whatever it is. There are tools available to you always. And just know that every season of your life, it may seem really, really hard, but it's part of the glow up that is meant to happen for you and for your life. So all you got to do is just hang in there. Okay? Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I will share a lot more about my findings on this change, and I hope this resonated with you about burnout. What can you do in terms of burnout? And I just want to throw in one more bonus, one more bonus tip for burnout. I literally just got off the phone with somebody that you're gonna hear from later on in this season, and she spoke about how music has always been like the therapeutic thing, and sometimes what do you do when your creative outlet isn't working anymore for your therapy, right? And I want to throw in one more bonus tip for burnout, and it's just rest. Sometimes our creative wells really just need the time to take a long nap and come back when they're ready, right? Right? To take a rest and to really give ourselves the permission to just go offline, restore, regenerate. We live in a society where we're just expected to go all the time. And that is not how humans operate. That is not how we operate at all. Okay, so whether it's a personal burnout or a creative burnout or, whatever kind of burnout, don't underestimate the power of simply resting and giving yourself the time to recuperate and restore. Okay, I hope this was helpful. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I hope this episode supported you. If this resonated with you, share it with a friend, leave us a review. It is the best way to ensure that other artists and songwriters get the support that they need. If you are ready to go deeper, join us at the Hitmaker Songwriting Retreat this October 2026 in Los Angeles. This is our 3-day immersive experience where serious songwriters get in the room, write with hit songwriters, and elevate their careers. You can find all the details in the show notes, along with my book, Self-Care for the Creative. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, your greatest masterpiece will always be you.